Today we're going to cook sauteed beef and mushrooms in a cream sauce, and it's as simple as it is delicious. This recipe is a variation on one from a Julia Child video actually, and I'll have a link to that in the description below. The main difference between my version and hers is that mine will not include diced potatoes, and I'll also be using vermouth instead of Madeira, because I can't find Madeira where I live. The other difference is that the way those videos are structured, the instructions on how to saute the mushrooms are in a different video entirely. They're actually in the how to cook poultry video, oddly enough, and I will also link to that below. This video will provide instructions on how to prepare both of the components all in one place. Here are our ingredients. I have 2 containers, about 200 grams each, of mushrooms, and 2 packages of cubed beef, also about 200 grams each. They were on a discount. So this is a great way to use subprime, discounted, or even frozen beef. Julia Child makes a point of using tenderloin, but any cut that isn't too tough or too fatty should do the trick. Additionally, I have some shallots, some heavy cream, some dry white vermouth, and some salt and pepper. I also tossed in a bit of parsley at the end, just for color. And the first thing we want to do is unpack, wash, and thoroughly dry our beef. If you're chopping up the cubes yourself, you might be able to skip this step, but when I get them in the store already cubed, I like to wash them. And you want to be sure to thoroughly dry them, because otherwise they'll steam in the pan instead of saute and brown. And we've done the same to our mushrooms, and now we need to chop them. For chopping them, I'm just trimming off the very tip of the stem, and then I'm going to cut them in half and then into wedges. For the shallots, I'm cutting them in half lengthwise, peeling off the skin, and then partially cutting them towards the root end, first parallel and then perpendicular to the cutting board. This enables me to chop them fine. About 2 shallots worth seem to be enough for this recipe. Now we begin the cooking process. First we saute the mushrooms. We begin by heating up about 1 tablespoon each of butter and refined coconut oil into our pan over high heat. When that's nice and hot, we add in our mushrooms. You don't want to crowd the pan and have overlapping layers because the mushrooms won't brown. Once added into the pan, at first the mushrooms will absorb all the cooking oils and keep their shape and dryness. At this point, you want to be constantly tossing them around. Eventually, they'll begin to release their liquids and the cooking oils and take on a browned color, at which point they're basically done. For some final touches, add in about half of your chopped shallots and a sprinkle of salt. At this point, these mushrooms can be put aside and used in many different recipes, or even be served as a side dish on their own. Next, we saute the beef in a similar amount of butter and oil over high heat so that the cubes brown. You don't want to cook them all the way at this point, as you're basically searing them. The amount of time necessary will depend on the size of your cubes. Smaller ones should cook right through while the larger ones will need more time. Once they're brown, remove them from the pan and replace them with shallots. Once the shallots soften up a little bit, add a few hefty tablespoons of vermouth to deglaze the pan. You could instead use white wine or sherry, but I think that dry vermouth really adds to the dish. Once the vermouth reduces a bit, add in about half a cup of heavy cream and let the sauce thicken over medium heat. Then, we season the beef with some salt and pepper before adding it into the pan to warm through. We then add back in the mushrooms and let the whole dish heat through. As a final touch, we toss in some parsley, give it a few more shakes, and then plate and serve, accompanied by just another sprinkle of parsley. And that's how you make a simple beef and mushroom saute with a cream sauce.